when the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality. Open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the book club by DLC.
Hello, book clubbers. Welcome to another episode of the DLC Book Club. I hope you're dancing. Hope you're having a good time. This is going to be quite the episode, I predict. I'm Jeff Kanata. I'm here with Lana Bashinsky. Hi, Lana.
Hello. I honestly have been thinking about it, and I have no idea how we're going to get through everything that happened in this one chapter, but I'm excited to try.
A single chapter, chapter 7, as I've been calling it, the Bohemoth. And according to my little cheat sheet here, 80 scenes in that one chapter. 80.
I mean, it'd be good to get a comparison of like how many in a normal like 2 chapters, 3 chapter situation, but it was, I have no idea what we're going to
I think they're usually in like the 20-ish range, give or take.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, first of all, before we even get into it, no spoilers yet, but what's your feeling on chapter 7?
Oh, what's my feeling on chapter 7?
Yeah, overall, just in general.
Overall, I mean, it's hard to say. Am I feeling good? Is that my feeling? Am I feeling
good?
Book good? I don't know. For like how many comments we got, just people saying chapter 7. I wasn't sure what to expect. Try not to like try not to set myself up for any particular feeling. And it's in many ways, I'm like, not at all what I would have expected from that many things. And in many ways, exactly what I would have expected from the kind of, from what it is. It's crazy. It's nuts.
It's for my money, it's one of the most extraordinary things I've ever read. It's like just chapter 7 alone, Erikson talks about how he approaches writing novels like a series of short stories.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like chapter 7 as a short story is extraordinary. It truly knocked me over, and we'll get into it. But
it's so well teed up. It's so well teed up. It was like
it is juggling so many things and the places it goes and how it's. I mean, we'll get into it. We'll get into it. But I think chapter 7 is. I mean, I run out of superlatives. I can't it's an unbelievable feat of storytelling. I just can't like the amount of people that we're even just dealing with,
Yeah. How many scenes? Okay. How many named individuals?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway. All right. So we'd like to start. I mean, we kind of jumped ahead just because this is an amazing week of reading, but we like to start the show with a non-spoiler topic so that if you're not caught up, you can still hang out, have fun, talk about books. And we got, this is a topic that was sent to us at DLC. Oh, no, you can send it to dlcfeedback@gmail.com. This was actually posted on our Discord, which is 5x5 DLC on Discord. Another great place to send topics if you're so inclined, or you could just post them on our YouTube comments. Anyway, you get them to us. We'll check them out. This one was posted on the Discord quite some time ago by OTV Bob. And the reason that it has taken us so long to get to it is it felt like one we really wanted to think about and chew on. Because we're, DLC as a brand started as a video game brand. We're doing the book club here as part of DLC, but DLC is our video game podcast. And Lana is a video game developer. We're steeped in video game attention. And we wanted to do this question justice. So here it is from OTV Bob on Discord. Idea for a pre-spoiler topic. I'm dying for a Malazan video game, and it's a world that is so ripe for a good one. A deck builder of the dragons, Coltane/Wiccan roguelite. I'd even take a Crusader Kings 3 mod at this point. can you guys design your ideal video game set in the Malazan universe? Tall order. I mean, we kind of even talked about this a little bit with Mr. Erikson himself. I don't. Maybe that was off mic, off recording, but we talked to him a little bit about it, and I think anybody that falls in love with a fantasy world or a series of books starts thinking, man, wouldn't it be great to just be in that place and be in that, I could be in that place in a video game. So I think it's a common, if you're a fan of video games, a common thought. And you're a video game developer currently working on video games at Riot Entertainment.
Riot Games.
They don't do entertainment. Only games.
Riot Entertainment makes Arcane.
Oh, pardon me.
Yeah. Sorry.
No, I'm glad you were correcting me. I'm wrong. At Riot Games, tell me what you would do with Malazan World, having read 6 novels now, or halfway through 6 novels.
Oh man, you're really gonna make me start. You
I
set
can
it
start
up
if you prefer. I'm trying to be nice.
No, please start, because you're like, oh, so we can really think about it. And I will say, I've thought about it a ton, but not enough to be like, oh, this is the ideal one. I feel like every time I come to this question, I'm like, oh, here would be a cool idea, but how does that fit into like my ideal game? I don't know yet. So I want to hear yours, and then maybe we riff.
The reason for me that it has been so challenging is that my favorite kinds of games are big, sprawling, open world role-playing games, right? The Skyrims of the world, the Witcher 3s of the world. These are my favorite kinds of games. And you immediately think, well, hey, what better universe to put that kind of game than Malazan, right? Because it is sprawling, it's big, you got all these locations that are so vivid in my mind, and you could recreate them, and I could go to 7 cities, and I could go to Darujistan, and I could go to all these places. And how cool would that be? And yet, the more I think about it, the less suited I think this story palette is for that type of game, because that type of game is you're one person in this world, and usually you're the most important person in that. You're going to save the universe somehow. Single-handedly through your exploits. And that just isn't the spirit of Malazan. So I kept thinking, as much as it would be cool to wander around in a fully realized 3D environment built out of this universe, I just don't think that's the right kind of game. And it's not the best way to tell this story. And so I was going over in my head, and even OTV Bob said a deck builder. And I think, honestly, something along the lines of a Marvel Snap or Hearthstone actually would be really cool. I would really dig it. I was going to grab it off my shelf. It's in the other room. But I have the Song of Ice and Fire physical deck building game. They've done a couple different versions of it. And it's pretty cool. And I think Malazan is even more suited to that because you have so many characters. This week is a great example of that. Just the Malazan 14th Army alone is in its entire deck of characters.
Yeah.
And then you have all the spellcasters and sorcerers, with different powers and different warrants. It would be, I think, a really, really cool game. And you can even I've played a lot of video game deck builders that have narrative elements where it's like, okay, here's a setting, here's another setting, here's some story to set it up, and now here's what you're doing. You have a subset of cards to work with. I think that would be really cool. An XCOM style tactical strategy game would be
so
cool.
Fun.
So those are my attempts to fit Malazan into a video game. What do you think?
I think both of those are really great. I think you touched very much upon like one of the things I think is the most challenging is like, we talked a bit about, being faithful to the original content, and like a game adaptation, like the biggest thing that is, if you're trying to be faithful to faithful to content in some way, it is there this element of story, and what does that look like in the game world? Because there's so many different ways to deliver that. A game I think about a lot. It's so challenging to fit it in because there are different pieces of the Malazan world mean something different to me. Each of the characters' stories mean something different. And so I think no matter what, there's no world where I would build a game that tries to encompass all of the Malazan universe. Except for maybe like a card game where you're like touching like every expansion, has like a new city, a new faction, like that makes a ton of sense. But I feel like it'd be like a suite of video games that I would be targeting, putting out in different genres that capture story moments, and you can infuse the right amount of story moments into these different types of games that fit together to be the world. Because every chapter we go through, if it's like a combat chapter versus like Coltane, like his tactical, everybody just trust me, we're going through this together, versus some of the more peculiar story like Tehal and Bug relationship builder, like oh, you're like the Tehal romance everybody in Lether game, where you're like this scrub billionaire guy who has to go and like romance people and schmooze them so that he can hide people on the island or whatever.
The Ferris tycoon.
Exactly. And so I think that would be the approach. Where I would start for like my ideal video game would probably be something like a roguelike. That is my favorite genre. I love it. Or something that has like high energy, is fast paced, the combat. I love competitive gaming. As you may be surprised, working at Riot, I love that space. And so something that would be a roguelite. I think the Coltane Wiccan roguelite is such a genius idea. Make it through the Chain of Dogs, baby. Making Chain of Dogs the game, and you have to like.
How far do you get?
When do you you unlocked like Nil and Nethers, like
it's good.
Spirit powers or whatever. Like you can get your different sort of.
I got bad news for you about completing the game, though.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, it's a tragedy. It's a tragedy. And the game that sort of pops to mind a lot, Children of Morta. I think you've played Children of Morta.
I love that game. Yeah.
The way that they infuse plot in that game, and even though you're like going into the dungeon, you're getting abilities, you're fighting your way through, the breaks between, I think they do a genius job infusing story in there, so you feel like you're moving forward, even though the loop is a roguelite loop. I think it's so good. Fantastic. So
I think that's a great one, a great pull. I'd also love to see that Children of Morta art style with the Malazan characters, that beautiful pixel art that is in that game. It's so good.
Stunning pixel art in that game.
You could even do like a Malazan like Frostpunk, like a deeply depressing sort of god game where you're trying to just, you're playing as one of the gods when you're trying to, you're Opon just pushing and pulling people.
Yeah, you could do an asymmetrical like Assassin's Guild versus Opon, so you get one person who's playing Opon who can like be pushing and pulling things around, like closing doors, almost like what is it, that American kid show like Legend of the Hidden Temple or something.
Oh, right, yeah.
Or Race Through the Hidden Temple. So they're like messing with the map and doing something asymmetrical there. Funny. And you get to play, like you and your team, like the other team is like an actual team of people. You get to pick your like assassins from the Assassin's Guild in Darujistan, and you have to go try and steal something, or like a competitive Assassin's Guilds against each other in Darujistan, like what is that, Hunt Showdown or something, where you're going through and you have team of 3, team of 5, different abilities you have to get through and steal something or assassinate somebody or whatever it is.
So many possibilities. It's
and
everything.
Just a snapshot of
the books
what
are
the
everything.
Yes.
So you got every kind of game you could make.
Yeah.
So good. Thank you for the question, OTV Bob.
Yes. I've thought about it at least once a week since you wrote it, however long ago.
Yeah, it's been a while. It's been multiple books ago, I think, since you wrote it. But we get to them all, so please keep sending them. Mm-hmm. We appreciate prompts from you because we want to know what you want to know. And it's always good to talk about it. All right, let's get into Chapter 7 of The Bonehunters. We haven't even really gotten to Bonehunters in this novel yet. There's not even any Bonehunters yet.
Well, they talk about the phalanges quite a bit. That's like true. The most I've seen.
All right, spoilers starting now. We usually step through, and we're going to try to step through, but again, 80 scenes. So it's going to be a challenge for this one single chapter. But let's start.
It's so funny because like up top it is one chapter, and it's like I could sum it up and be like, "Here's what happened in 3 sentences,"
Yeah,
and then be like, "Well, see you next week," you know.
I
But
mean, honestly, I thought about it like maybe this week we should just talk in broad terms. But there is a lot of really wonderful granular stuff. But in broad terms, it like the sweep of what happens is so awesome as like its own self-contained story where you've got, the sort of disillusion of Corab and his feelings about Leoman of the Flails and sort of that arc, but then like the battle itself, the ebbs and flows of the battle where you have, all this setup scenes of everybody sort of getting ready, the fear, the worry, all of that stuff so beautifully illustrated and we're checking in on all the ways that these guys are freaking out about what's about to happen. Then you have the initial press of the sappers and that one guy screwing it up for everybody. And you think, oh, that's the craziest thing that's going to happen.
yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And then, because as you kind of pointed out, as we started this episode, I went into this knowing everybody being like, chapter 7, here, chapter 7, chapter 7. So I'm constantly going, oh, the craziest thing that happened was the sappers blew up the wall too soon. Craziness, right?
Yeah.
Then you find out Leoman's plot, the hellfire of the sky.
Then you think that you know Leoman's plot. So they like bust it.
Right.
It's like, okay, screwed it up for everybody. But now they have, assassins in the windows with arrows. They're just going to be like picking them off and they're going to get through, but it's going to be like this trudging battle. And then they're in the one building and they're like, what's all over the place? And you're like, oh no, no.
Yes. And then that starts going crazy. And you think, well, this is the craziest thing in this whole chapter right here. Here we are. Yeah. Craziest thing. The olive oil of hell, like, and then it gets to what I think just put it over the top for me as one of the most incredible things I've ever read. Because then you have this like harrowing survival tale that I just could not. And also we take time to trip balls on honey.
On the godsend and honey. Woo!
Right. So there you go. That's our sort of overarching feelings of chapter 7. But we'll try to step through it as best we can because we start with Corab's point of view, and he's still mad at this Dunsparrow lady, but there's like cracks in Leoman's armor, and he's like, what's going on? Why, so hey, we're gonna be at the front, right? Fighting with the army. And he's like, everybody's laughing at him. He's like, why are you laughing? What's going on?
This is what I like about this relationship is everybody laughing at him. There's like, yeah, we've seen him, like we're introduced to him as this guy who's kind of like clumsily not dying. Right. He's not doing great, but he's just not dying is sort of like the main things that we take away from our first meetings with him.
Yeah.
And
it's
then
kind of a goof.
And then we see him like really standing on ceremony with these names and like, Leoman, you're my guy. And so when people laugh at him, there's like some amount of like, well, he's a silly dude, what he's saying. But there's like a little bit
he kind of doesn't get it, right? He kind of doesn't get the vibe of the room. Honestly, as much as we're inside Corab's point of view, a lot of the Dunsparrow stuff, I was like, you don't get it, Corab. Like, be cool, buddy.
Yeah, but also his faith in Leoman and that Leoman's going to have a genius plan.
Yeah,
it's not that he doesn't, but you expect Leoman to have more honor than he does, and to not have asked his army to make the sacrifice that he did.
Oh, yes.
And that I think is like, so even when it happens, it's like I feel like disillusioned alongside Corab. Not that I was ever like, oh, Leoman, my guy, but I felt it in real time, it was very resonant because of the adoration we see for him and the respect that we got for Leoman from Karsa and other people. So there's like, Leoman is set up to be like a good dude. And when he's disillusioned with war in general, he's like, I'm out of here. I'm done with fanatics. You're like, whoa, I really did not expect that to be the turn in just nuking his own army and then getting out of there is crazy.
It's a real heel turn for Leonin.
Yeah.
And you're right, because our first experience was him being buddy cop with Karsa on that whole escape and like being honorable and all that stuff. So yeah,
well, he was always like all up in the Durang, which even Karsa was like not my thing. So there's like hints of it, like it's teed up that he's not like this perfect commander in some way, but he held this place of respect in the book, and therefore a place of, I assume everybody respects him, so he's going to do something respectful in my mind.
Well, then we have a little scene with Pearl and Lestara Yell, and that kind of sets up that whole situation where they kind of have a tiff. Lestara is like, I want to go and fight, and he's like, fine, go. Bad idea, Jeans.
See if I care. I do.
Bad idea, Jeans. And then there's a number of scenes where we're checking in on all these characters, all these soldiers, all these factions inside the army, all these individual squads that are all getting ready. Even the command structure, and Erikson does such a good job of checking on people, even people that like we don't know. We check in on them like we're super familiar with them, even though we don't necessarily know. There's a bunch of new names being thrown at us. In fact, this early section was the most bewildering of them, because there's so many characters, and it's like the fact that Erikson has them all in his head and is able to have distinctions between them, but there's so many. You really get the breadth of what this army consists of.
Yes. And I think it was like a little bit in the last chapter when Bottle's going around being like, New Captain wants to see everybody, but it's again this sense of like the rituals of what people are doing to stay chill right before they're about to do something where they're probably going to die, or like high likelihood of death, and seeing how they react. There's like one group, I think, right before where they're like, all right, we're going in, everybody getting ready, like pack it up, what's happening? And the one guy's like, what? Who are you? Where are we? And his soldier friend, he's like, he's got the confusion.
This is Balm you're talking about.
Balm. And then he like,
which is like a guy we haven't hung out with at all.
And then the one
like
guy
super
leaves,
important.
And he's like, good job faking the confusion, man. And he's like, who are you? And he, like, he's not. He's like, he's got this madness. Like, you just seeing different people snap or prepare, or like
I was
like
wondering if that was based on something real. Like if that's a like documented thing that soldiers sometimes will just kind of lose connection with reality on the eve of a terrible battle. I wonder if that's based on something.
If I feel like it must be. If it's not, I'm like, well, then it just seems like it's not documented. Like, it just makes sense to me.
I loved that. It was such an evocative thing of him like, hey, good job. What? Who are you? I also liked, checking on Hellion, our little drunk, and the fact that she literally traded her sword for a bottle of booze.
So ridiculous. I love that her name is Hellion.
Yeah.
Every time you check in with Hellion, I'm like, yeah, she is a little Hellion. She's like, everybody shut up.
Yeah.
Where's my sword?
Ornery.
And they're like, if you don't shut up, I'm going to stab you. With what? And she's like, oh, your sword. Like,
I'll take your sword and stab you with it. It's like, it's so funny. Also, we have this lovely moment where Bottle is watching and realizing, oh, there's no difference in this moment between the veterans, between the ranks. Everybody's freaking out. Everybody's freaking out in their own way. Everybody's the same. There's no amount of been here before that's going to inure you from the, So I thought that was cool. Yeah. So then we check back in with Leomin, and he's like, hey, I got this deal going with the Queen of Dreams. Everything's going to be great. And we're going to get Leoric, get over here. And Leoric's like, hey, what? Oh, that's because...
and in the Malazan camp, all of a sudden, one rider rides through. They shoot with a couple of arrows, and they're like, what in the heck is going on?
Right through here?
The whole camp?
You're not supposed to be able to do that.
Hey, that's not allowed. So we tell him, come back here. We got to kill him. That was bad.
Yeah. I thought that was pretty cool.
And then he like shows, and I was like, I feel like I should know who this is. And then he gets there and I'm like, oh, and I love that he like got shot with a bunch of arrows. So he's like kind of half riding off his horse as he continues. The next scene, no arrows, but he's like, ow, my neck. Like, that's that godling status.
So Leoric's like, I'm not cool with this. Like, what did you promise? He's like, no big deal. Just shut up. All you shut up. And Corab's like, what are we doing? Why are we leaving? We got to go to the fight. Very fun foreshadowing, right? I love the slow burn of all this.
I love the slow burn. And Corab, like, I love that he's not really like, what are we doing? He's like, no matter what Liam is saying, he's taking it out of context and putting it where it makes sense for what a commander should be doing.
Yeah.
Where he's like, when are we getting up there to like, we're going to be doing this, and he's like, we're not going to be doing that. He's like, aha, yes, we'll be on the front lines. That is excellent. That is the way this should go down. He's like, we're not doing that. He's like, interesting. Yes, we will do stealth. And he's like, no, shut up.
Well, I will go to the front lines for you, sir. And he's like, yes. No, I got a job for you. You guard my back. Guard your back. Yes, because that's where all the bad things will be, because we'll be at the front. Like, so good. So good. All right. Then we have the sappers sort of getting ready to sap. And we have more wonderful little foreshadowing moment where Ebron comes up and is like, hey, Bottle, there's a real weirdo in the mix. This Crump fella. Watch the Crump because
he gonna be crumping.
Legit bad news.
Yeah.
Crump.
Yeah, aren't they like, he was a Mott irregular?
Yeah.
But he got kicked out. And they're like, who recruited that guy?
You got kicked out of the Mott irregulars? How bad you gotta be to get kicked out of that group?
The Maniac Squad.
Yeah. You're too crazy for the crazies. All right. Then we have this very interesting little thing that I think is hinting at stuff to come, with Bottle thinking about sorcery, and he imagines in his head the warren, and it turns into this sort of festering portal, this red wound, something we've seen before in previous novels. And he realizes that there's more power coming out of it than he anticipated. Kind of feels like it's not even his power that he's drawing on. And he says, power is blood, blood is power, and this blood, it belongs to an elder god. Yeah.
Which
that felt like
it
foreshadowing.
Foreshadowing, and I also felt like, I was like, yeah, cruel, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that like what we all, yeah.
Yeah. But it felt like he was like tapping into something more
bigger,
potent than what he, yes, exactly. All right. So other stuff, people thinking about, it's all just anticipation, Pella talking about Gessler, Stormy, and Truth's gold skin. And like, what did you guys did some crazy stuff with that Salanda boat. And they, Leoman, back to Leoman and Leoric and Dunsparrow and Corab, and they're making sure that the signals on the rooftops are ready. And he's like, my plan might work. And he's like, plan? Corab's like, plan? What plan? We're going to fight, right? We're going to fight? What's the plan? Cuddle steps in a wasp nest, which I thought was a little fun detail of like the craziness that they're like sneaking up to the wall, and he steps in a wasp nest. He's like, wasps! Can't feel my leg.
Yeah, and don't they have to like, somebody like immediately drops a rock on it or something and crushes the whole thing in one go? Yeah. He like steps on it. If he got like a whole bunch of stings, he would have just been dead, but they got rid of it. And they're sneaking under, they're using that illusion magic to like look like a big rock slowly.
That's right. Yeah. And Bottle knows that the illusion magic could be easily dispelled, but he's like, they don't have any mages. We're going to be fine. This is going to be great. I can do like my weakest spells and they're no big deal. Easy peas. But then of course crumps and sets off all of the bombs.
Because he like makes I think he calls them wall splitters or something like that. And he like tied a bunch of them together and he's like, haha. And isn't it Fiddler who's like, oh, no. That's not, no, how we do things. And like something of that moment, I should have gone back and read it. He like already poured the acid on the wax.
Yeah.
He's like, what do you mean? Did. And like,
you mean this one? Yeah. I'm not supposed to light these?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Cuddle's like, all right, we got 10, 9, 8. And it goes off at 8.
Good. So good. They're like running and like, who's it? Who's hurt? Cuddle's hurt or being carried or like, because his leg's numb.
Right.
Like dragging him along. And then they make it, they're fine, quote unquote fine, behind this like limestone outcropping. And he's like, your counting was bad, man. He's like, yo, I had to give you hope. Like, what would you rather? What would you rather?
Would
the
you rather
dread?
Go, 3, 2, wow, we're toast. And then we immediately cut to Lestar Yill, who gets just knocked over by the shockwave of this explosion. She's standing there watching it kind of come toward her as soldiers are being knocked down. Such a cool scene where she's like, what's going on? And then it hits her too. And then, is it here where she gets pulled? Maybe later, where she gets pulled by some unseen force. Saved, I think, but we don't literally never check in with her again after that. I
assume that Pearl, because he just be lurking, was like lurking, but then he's like,
that's not him. Later. It's not him because he thinks she's dead later. Yeah.
But I guess for me, I'm like, he's like acting or something so nobody misses her, or like, maybe I'm wrong. I'm like,
my take was that something saved her that we don't know yet, and Pearl legit thinks she's dead. That's my take, but you're
probably right, and I'm just being too paranoid.
So then we know this the wall has exploded. So Keneb and Feridan Sort start sending in all of the army. They're heading in. They're going to have their first big actual battle. They're going to storm Ygatan. And they move through this crater that was caused by Crump's explosion. Like this, it blew up so much that it literally caused this huge crater in the ground.
But even that, I felt like was foreshadowing. I guess that's just what would happen with explosives. But being we made this space so that we can go is like, everything's like a little check on the way to. Here's the mechanics we get to use later.
Well, also there was such an explosion that they see down into like some other architecture down there, and there's these like yellow birds painted on tiles beneath. So super foreshadowing, because it's like, there's a whole city down here, but we're kind of
anyway, not what we're here for.
Yeah, and I love this moment too, where Smiles drops her rope. And Fiddler's so pissed about her dropping a rope, he punches her in the chin. Like, rope, we're going to need rope later. So good. So good.
So good. Yes.
Yeah. And everybody is running in, and they realize it was an ambush. There's all these fanatics that are shooting arrows down at them. People start dying. Borduk, arrow to the eye, arrow to the throat. Hub. Who's Hub? I don't know. Dead now.
Gone.
Yes. Ib, also dead. All these new characters, but like you just feel the chaos of this battle that is broken out. Fiddlers is fighting. Coric's fighting. Bottle is knocked down. This guy's trying to bite his neck. They're so fanatical that they're just like ravaging and rampaging their way over the wall down from these buildings. Fiddler fires a explosive arrow into one of the buildings, knocks it down. People are like, what are you doing, you maniac?
Yeah, he's like, it's the only way we can go through. And then they're like, I guess so. And don't they like resolve to continue just knocking buildings down, because otherwise there'll just be ambush after ambush.
Yeah. And there's all these like, horrible guy. Bottom half is missing. His entrails fall out. People getting buried by rubble. It's just I was so in this moment of limited visibility. You know, you're just struggling to survive, people coming out of the fog of war and attacking and just trying to survive, things blowing up around you.
At some point, then we cut back to Corab and crew sort of sitting atop their perch, wherever they are. And they're like, I think it's that initial wall explosion where, you know, Corab's like, we're so great. These Malazans, they'll die like dogs in the street. And then explodes. And he's like, that is awful. How does anybody fight the Malazans? That is dangerous. Like, that is really, really brutal. Holy moly. We should get off the rooftops, I think.
We also have this moment where Sin cuts a finger off a body and puts it in her pouch, like all creepy like, and Fiddler's like, oh, you got a creepo? We used to have a creepo.
We had one of those. I see you. I see you.
We had a creepy little young girl who was like way too into murdering people. Yeah, I remember that. It was good times. Good times. Oh, man, so much stuff. People dying. Pella dies. Oh, that moment where Pella dies is so heartbreaking. His writing, man, it's so exquisite because we have all these people. Pella, I couldn't pick Pella out of a lineup. You know, I don't even know who Pella is. And all of a sudden I care for Pella because he has this flashback as he dies of skinning his knees as a little boy and apologizing to his mom.
Because she had to like spend their money just to get him the medical treatment. And that should have gone to like letting them move somewhere good.
Dude, the mix between the sort of horrific boots on the ground chaos of war and then cutting to somebody in their moment of dying having this beautiful innocent, oh, I'm sorry, Mom, I'm sorry I skinned my knees, like just breaks your heart.
Like it really is like this line between life and death. We see so much death, but then we also cut to these moments where we're seeing the lives of these people. You know, we see it later once we get in sort of the tunnels, but like deep glimpses, like a glimpse at something that is deep within a person and what their history is, what their background is, where they come from. It's
a previously non-important background character that may have been mentioned a few times at most, you know? And again, the sort of breadth of it, the fact that we get all these names, you know, there's a moment where, you know, there's another explosion and we find out that Moke dies, Stacker dies, Rove dies, Burnt dies, Guano dies, Mud dies, all new names or mostly new names. But like, just it is expressing the impact of this moment that there are these individuals dying. And then we cut to somebody's like inner life and you realize that everybody has that, right? We're not just NPCs. It's not just numbers on a spreadsheet. It really is individuals who are all in this mess, dying, sacrificing themselves.
And just to be named is again like the respect of that is afforded by being a named character in the book. How even for like just the moment that you die, it implicitly adds the care and respect somebody else in the book had for that person. And you feel it like instantly because they have an identity. Yeah.
We have this wonderful moment too, where we check in with Hellion, who is mad that she bumps into Herb, her buddy Herb. Hey, Herb. And she's like, we have a squad, right? Where did our squad go? And she's like, there's our squad right there.
Yeah, these two people.
Two guys. But it's awesome because we have her sort of lose the squad and then gain it back. I just thought that was such a cool, I don't know, little conceit, you know, of just watching her lose everything and then slowly gain it back and like accumulate all the people that are kind of under her command.
I also like the fact that she's like around, just because I know that a lot of times Well, I remember like having to take a like first aid training or whatever, and you learn about like different circumstances where you might run into somebody, and like, oh, if you see like there's like a possibly like a drunk driving accident or something, the person who was drinking or is inebriated is more likely to survive because their muscles are so loose, because they're just can flop around and their body's like, whatever. It's like moving too slowly to actually properly react to the damage it's taking a lot of the time. And so the fact that she's kind of literally like drunkenly stumbling her way through hellfire is, it's resonant.
Yeah, indeed. And then we have the moment that we talked about a little bit earlier where Balm and all these other characters, Throat Slitter, Dead Smell, Widdershins, and I love how he kind of gives this moment to previously unimportant characters or sort of newish characters to our attention. They are in this building and they find the olive oil packed in the walls with basically what looked like fuses, these clay fuses, and they make the realization that this entire city is a trap. Basically.
So genius.
Yeah.
So genius. Setting up the people in the city, the merchants of the city, being like, wow, this is our emperor's ransom of oil. Like, I'm sitting here picturing an emperor's ransom of oil, and you know what that is? A ton of oil, like so much oil. And then to have this moment, seeing it in the buildings, being like I immediately, like the danger level was like just spiked, like, oh, it's so
you're so right. And
good.
It's so cool because you had Leoman, hoarding all of the oil and not letting them do anything with it. In fact, drowning the merchants who argued about it. And in that moment, I didn't think, oh, he's got machinations. There's a reason for it. But in retrospect, you're like, oh, he was doing this. This
he's
is what he was
pouring
doing.
it in the walls, or like
making a city bomb city.
Bomb city.
And also the fact that the Malazans themselves are using explosives as a means to attack the city.
I know.
Oh no. And I also love how we've seen, I think it was the previous book where we saw magic as the sort of weapon of mass destruction. And this one almost entirely devoid of magic. Here's a fight that is just showing you how destructive explosives are and how terrifying just sort of mundane weaponry. I mean, not even weaponry. There's very little actual hand-to-hand combat.
Sword on sword fighting.
Yeah. Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
The way he comes up with new ways to thrill, really.
New ways to thrill, and also like something that seems like such a boon, because we came from the book where magic was devastating.
Yeah.
And then having them be like, they don't have any mages. Like, we only have a couple. We're fine. And it's like, yeah, that's great. But then you're like, oh man, if only they had magic to use. Like, if only they had used that. It seemed like such a massive advantage to like do the things the way that they are, because they can be sneaky, because they can go in and like infiltrate in this way or whatever. And it's like, oh man, just like for like at least half of the people just dying in this city makes you wish that they had the thing that last book we were like, that's horrible.
Yeah. I know. It's why, and you're like, oh, even Bottle being like, oh, it's so great that Leoman doesn't have any mages. We can just march right in. It's like, guess what? There's other bad stuff.
You'll still go get vaporized.
And then, we literally see, I said fuses earlier. This is incorrect. We see how the olive oil is being detonated, and it's literally suicide bombers, right?
Yeah.
It's these guys who have the rope tied to their foot and kick a weight off and just jump down holding lanterns to detonate. Oh, just a horrific image.
Dark. And especially because like that's the like that being the way that is executed, like he could have just dropped the lantern. Like
I know. Throw a torch at it.
Like he could have just hit. And that's the part that is, I mean, it's all horrific.
Yeah.
But that especially of not just detonating this city, but it really could have been, and like let's say tactically, you want to have some of these other ambushes as like the pump fake, right? To lure them in and to think that that's your big plan, whatever. That's like a tactical sacrifice you're willing to make. There doesn't need to be that many. And then you don't need these other guys to just jump off buildings. You just don't. That's like a despicable thing for Leomund to have commanded. It's like, and Leomund doing it almost out of spite. Like, I think it's at this moment that he's like, I'm sick of fanatics. I don't want fanatics anymore. I've been dealing with these Shaikh fanatics for so long. And it's like, he's not only doing it out of this strategy, he's doing it out of spite for the people that he's been living among and allied with, and just hating the fact that that's how they express themselves. It seems like he did it maliciously, and that is like so gross. It's so
gross. But I also think Erikson's making a point about fanaticism as a ideology, you know, because I think we finally get to Corab's realization at the end of this chapter where he sort of sees the faults in it.
Yes.
And I think part of that is what Erikson's point is, or, you know, the author's POV, such as it is, I think is expressed in like just how extreme, like they're gleefully partaking in this horrific plan, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree that it's not like they're like, oh gosh, I wish I didn't have to do this.
Right.
But I still think it's, you know, it's an abuse of power to people. Fanaticism bad. Yeah. Taking fanatics and being like, do my bidding. Also bad. Also bad.
Yeah. We cut out of this chaos to Fist Blistig and the adjunct, who are freaking out, and Tavor is just ordering everyone to get out of the city and try to douse the breach. And Nil and Nether are like, we don't have any power anymore. The spirits are like out of here. In fact, there's going to be a fire spirit
elemental
that's born. I thought that was the coolest idea, that this thing that mortals do, you know, a mortal has set off this incredible firestorm in a purely mundane, you know, non-metaphysical way, and yet it manifests something beyond natural, right? The supernatural is born of this very mundane moment. I thought that was such a cool idea.
I mean, we saw that a bit in the last book as well, where like people just believed enough that there was a spirit that they're throwing their diamonds and whatever in the hole in the ocean. Yeah. And they believed so much, and they concentrated so much of their own personal energies there and their own pieces of their life. Like, I think they literally like throw people down there, throw jewelry, like whatever, that it did manifest a spirit who was attracted to that energy. And so they like made it so. I like that this is like the physical version of it. There's like a concentration of enough explosive energy that like just the force of the combustion.
Yeah, it disturbs the natural order in some way, right? It is such a potent atrocity that it literally like forces something metaphysical to happen. I just think that's really awesome.
Yeah.
All right, so man, this is the moment where we see Lestara Yill. She's like knifing people, and there's fire around her, and it's about to engulf her in flames, and a figure grabs her and pulls her back as she passes out. We don't know who. And we literally never see her again in this entire chapter. So it's like, what's that about?
Yeah.
Pretty cool. Then, you know, it's hot. Then
it feels like the same temperature as it does in Seattle this week.
Yeah. I imagine as you were reading this, you're like, I can relate to a giant firestorm all around me.
Yeah.
That's called.
I literally read the chapter. So I had this week off. So I went down to the beach and I was reading in the shade, but then I had to ride my bike home uphill, and like the hot gusts of just dead wind. And I'm like, this is just the heat of the sun, and breathing it in, it like hurts my lungs. It really felt like I was like, I get it. I'm there with you.
You get the full experience. This is the full reading experience.
Yeah.
It's the
4D.
4D. I was just going to say the D box. Yeah, 4D. All right. So then we have these horrible moments where literally you have Captain Sort killing her own soldier because he's on fire just to put him out of his misery with her crossbow. We see Sin, fire dancing in her hair, kind of controlling it in some way.
Sin mostly fine.
Mostly fine. A little scary, but mostly fine. Everybody's like shedding armor because it's boiling them from the inside. Ugh. People's hands melting to their sword hilts. The level of detail in expressing how awful it is to be trapped in this firestorm. I thought, well, here we are in the reason people talk about chapter 7. Like, I get it. This is incredible and so harrowing as a reader to just, there's so many details, and we check in with so many people that are just trying not to be burned alive and trapped by fire. We have this moment where Truth sacrifices himself.
Ay, ay, ay. So like they're going through the city. They're trying to continue forward because there's nothing else they can do, but they're mostly trying to find anywhere that doesn't have fire. And this is where they're like, if we do another big blast, it's going to temporarily open a hole in the fire.
Fight fire with fire.
And then we got to run through, but we got to do it. And Truth is the one who makes that way for them.
Makes that sacrifice. Yeah. Goes in. I love that moment where it's like, hey, well, we went through fire. Gessler, Stormy, Truth. We all went through fire. We did. Look, we got bronze skin. We survived. It's going to be fine. And Fiddler going, different fire. Mm-hmm. Not the same fire.
Yeah.
Oof.
Especially because we saw somebody make that argument.
Yeah.
That worked out for him pretty bad.
Exactly. Yes. So then we're back with Corab, with Leoric being like, I don't want, and Queen of Dreams is like, hey, well, here we go.
Yeah. Well, just quickly.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, man, I'll never remember his name. The dude who's now Hood's guy, I think. The guy who died in the fire before.
Bowden.
So he is back in his own way, right?
Yes, right.
Somebody else pointed out Truth, Stormy, Gessler, they are ascended in some way.
Half ascended. Yes.
Truth's not gone. But
maybe
I assume. I don't know how he's going to come back. But even though I do assume that his corporeal form probably died in whatever the blast.
Interesting. Yeah, half ascended. You're right. Good point.
He coming back. I don't know how. I don't know how.
I think that's a really good point. Keep an eye out for Truth, as I always try to. So we're back with the Queen of Dreams in this weird moment where, we have this portal open up and Corab is like, what, Leomund? Are we the bad guys? Yeah. Am I the baddie? Have I been following the wrong a-hole?
Sorry, does this portal lead to the front lines?
Yeah.
I've been...
this, Leoric is like, I am so not down for this. This is bad. And then the Queen of Dreams is like, hey, here's the sitch. You watched Shaik. She dead, right? Even the new Shaik. Old Shaik, dead. New Shaik, also dead. We need a new Shaik. And Leoric's like, oh, you already picked somebody? Queen of Dreams is like, yeah, totally picked somebody. You want to be the bodyguard? And Leoric is like, I guess I'm down for that.
Yeah, I could do, third time's a charm.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have any guesses as to who new Shaik might be, but I'm very curious when we find out about that. Seems like a bad gig being a Shaik.
Yeah, especially with all the talk about fanaticism and what that means. Yeah, it doesn't seem great. I didn't actually. That would have been something if I did not think to even try and formulate a guess of who new Shaik could be.
Yeah, I feel like whatever I'm going to say is going to be wildly wrong. But
I'm like one of these weird babies. We got so many babies. We got so many pregnant creatures.
Let me
maybe
make
babies?
a crazy guess. This is undoubtedly wrong. Crazy, wild theory guess.
Let's hear it.
Lestara Yill.
Oh.
Saved. Last moment.
It's a good crazy guess. It's a
crazy guess. That's probably wrong.
My brain just said, that's a cool ranchy guess.
Thank you. All right. But then obviously the more important point is Corab is like, I'm not going with you. I'm not doing this. I'm going to die honorably.
With the other men that you sacrificed to this. Yeah.
And Leomund's like, don't be an idiot. I got an extra ticket for you. Look, there's like one more seat in the portal. You can come.
Corab more and more to me is like goofy Karsa. Like
goofy Karsa.
Similar-ish journey. Honorable. Like when we met him and he's like falling off a horse or tripping on things and just like not dying, never in a billion years did I think I'd have like this chapter where I'm like, yeah, Corab. Nice,
I know.
Corab.
But that's what's so wonderful about these novels is that seems to happen over and over again.
Yeah.
But also, I loved him back then. He was like one of my favorite characters.
Don't get me wrong, I loved him. I just didn't think I would like look into his heart and be like, oh, he's just a little sweetie pie.
Yeah. Did I think I could love him more? No. Do I love him more? Oh, you bet your sweet Bippy I love him more. Yeah, I mean, because it's honor without even saying it. Like, it's honor in action. Like, we're not told he's honorable. We watch him be honorable.
Yes, yeah.
And it's so great. And then, even more honorable is he's like, oh, cool, they left. What's behind this curtain? Oh, bunch of kids. Bunch of kids.
Where'd they come from?
What?
They evacuated the city and there's just like, these are just Streetershins? And immediately I was like, who else had a bunch of kids? Clom had a bunch of kids. Where are all those kids?
I don't think those are the Clom kids.
No, I don't think these are the Clom kids. But it just made me be like, we're going to have a book sometime soon that's like featuring all of the babies.
It's Malazan the Next Generation. But of course, Corab being honorable is like, you were all left behind. I shall care for you. Mm-hmm. And by care for you, I mean, we're going to stay right here and hope the firestorm goes away.
I like that. There's like, I don't know if it's this scene or I think it's when the Malazans come in, but he like looks at all the kids or he's like looking at the Malazans and he's like, and he turns around, and he looks at the kids and they're all like,
yeah.
And he's like, I'm just going to turn back around because there's nothing to say. There's nothing. Yeah. You're sad. I'm sad. Everybody's pretty sad. And I'll just we'll leave it there.
I could try to give you some words of, but not, there's fire everywhere. Bad things. All right. So we're back with the army and things are real bad. Hellion meets up with Baum though. And again, that the squads are kind of reconstituting and we're getting a larger group together. And she's still being real rude to people. She's like, what's your name? Throat Slitter? Go cut your own throat, Slitter.
So, what's the word? Just
cantankerous.
Cantankerous, just like so full of vitriol, like and absolutely zero cares about anybody. It's great.
Yeah. So we, we're still having a real hard time. the bottle and what remains of the 14th are fighting. Spears are being. There's still the fanatics are still attacking them, and like the city is literally burning around us, and we have to fight people.
Yeah,
we have to fight people. Also, that's just not cool.
Come on, we could all just be running together, and this would be slightly less bad than it is. But
we have this fella Tavos Pond who gets his face sliced off and his eye falls out.
And then he's like,
yeah, let's push that back in. Let's push that right back in.
Yeah.
And then the spear into Fiddler's leg, which is not good as well.
And also, I'm sort of thinking and correcting myself. Truth ran into the palace to try and he did clear the way and they ran through it? Or is that him being like, Leomund's up there, we got to at least do what we came for? Was that
No, I think
moment?
it's the first one.
Yeah,
I think
okay,
it was
just making
him like making an explosion that literally clears the fire out.
Yeah.
It's so that they can run through it.
Yeah. Okay. Great.
So they all head toward the domed temple of Scalasara. And we have, I mean, the level of detail of just how awful it is, because we've got heat, we've got things fusing to our body, and then we have this moment where Bottle sees his fingers are turning blue from hypoxia.
Yeah.
Just like, oh, hey, on top of everything else, there's nothing to breathe.
Yeah.
No oxygen because it's being burned up. This is what would happen in a fire, right? People die of asphyxiation more, just as much as they do from burning.
Yeah.
So we're moving toward the domed temple, back to the command structure. Blistig, Tavor, they're all freaking out. There's this moment where Tavor asks Grub how many people there, and Grub's like 791.
Yeah.
It's like, whoa, Grub's cool.
Oh, Grub several times has basically been like, everything's gonna be really bad.
Yeah.
And then what's his face is like, Keneb's like, what a wacky little dude. I'll ignore that.
Yeah.
Like, somebody start listening to Grub. He's better for more than math, bro.
Yeah. Promote Grub, Yeah. And we have the revelation that Sin is actually a high mage and she just doesn't even know it.
Yeah.
Nil and Nether's like, she got power, yo.
And Sin's like losing it.
Yeah.
Right? Because she
wants to go back in. She like wants to run into the fire, and they're trying to hold her back and stop her from going in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then back to Corab with the kids, and the Hellion and the Malazans like bust into the room, and they're like, oh, this is awkward because we're enemies. But Corab's like, I'm not an enemy anymore. I got this real change of faith here because Leomund's a jerk.
And they're like, prove it, throw your sword away. And he's like, okay.
Yeah,
it's over there now.
Yeah. And this really lovely line where like the only enemy is fire now. I thought that was cool.
Yeah. I also, it's interesting that like Corab is actually one of the only people who still has a weapon, because everybody's throwing theirs away because it's melting their skin off.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting.
Ugh. I love this moment too, where the Fiddler and the other Malazans are in the altar chamber. They arrive with all the other group. It's like everybody's running to the same place because it's the only place not on
building still standing. Yeah,
exactly. And they're like, okay, what can we do? And Corab's like, well, Leomund's a jerk. He left. And they're like, he's alive. Yeah. How's he alive? How did he leave? Did he run out through the fire? He's gonna burn up. He's like, no. He left through a portal. A portal? Oh, cool. Let's use it too. Well, all right. It's over there at the altar. And they look over and Crump's like peeing in it.
Like,
and it shatters immediately.
Yeah. Crump, bro. You gotta
ruining everything.
Every moment of this is on you, almost.
It's so great how he ruins it too. He's literally just pissing in the fountain.
It's so ridiculous. Well, then he's like pissing in the fountain, and then later they're like, what's the temperature of that fountain? Fill up those bottles. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah. So now things start getting, this is where it went from being awesome to just can't stop turning pages. I'm just blasting my way. Because I think I said last week that my Kindle told me I had 4 hours on this chapter, which is intense. But man, they flew by because at this point, I mean, it already was intense. I was in it. I was loving it. But the moment where Bottle is like, there's something under here. There's a whole city under here. And the rats are leaving. I think we can go down.
Woohoo. And like just the tension changes from like the immediate danger to that like psychological, try and stay calm, wedging through these tight spaces. And I guess, I mean, the fire still being behind them, basically, effectively, possibly chasing them through this thing.
Well, it collapses the dome. As soon as they like go down, the building that they were in was the only place they were going to huddle for safety, literally collapses. They would have all died.
Yeah.
Awesome.
It's so good. And just like the way, like Bottle, like the more we get to hang out with Bottle, where we're like, what a wacky little dude. And like through this next portion of the chapter, we see how much more impactful that death of Joyful Union really was for Bottle. Because like we knew, okay, he's like a mage. He's doing like little weird mage things. He has that weird conversation with Fiddler where he's like, just do what listening was over there? We didn't go there. Yes, go there. No, we're going. And you're like, what a weird little guy.
And he uses his little creatures to spy on people. And
you're like,
he has this odd relationship with his grandma. And he's like, he's an odd little guy.
Mm-hmm.
But then, this sequence is just like, first of all, what an awesome magical power.
So great. So great. Yeah. And like the like emotional connection of like soothing people or like soothing, not people, creatures, like dangers in like these tunnels. It's so
I like how
exquisite.
He has to be in kind of close proximity to it. So he reaches out for a rat. And he's like, there's no rats around. And then he finally gets one. He's like, okay, I can ride my soul inside this rat.
Mm-hmm.
And and the way it's described as how he senses it, and he can see through its eyes, but it's more than that. It's like he's sensing through its senses, which are different than human senses.
They describe like his body, like he's still able to use his body while it's happening, but they describe that his like body is kind of like going almost like a zombie, and his face is slack because he's like just the rat man now.
Awesome.
Excellent.
Awesome. Not that he's limp and incapacitated, that he's sort of in two places at once and so diminished in the first place, right? It's such an awesome idea.
Such a great skill.
Yeah.
And so they get this rat. He's like, the rats are going. He pumps everybody. It's another moment pumping everybody full of hope. And internally, he's like, what I'm not saying is they're running. None of them that I've felt have found an escape. But
the great line is him saying, rats will flee even if there's nowhere to go.
Flee. Yeah.
Like we're all going. And what I'm telling everybody is follow the rats, and like, who knows where the rats are, they may be going to their own doom.
Yeah. Ugh.
Oh, incredible.
And then he's like, we're going, it's exciting. Let's open this thing. And then we can try and shut it behind us so the fire doesn't come get us. And then they have the order. They have somebody, I would need everybody adopting children. I want a child between every soldier.
What an awesome plan.
So just good.
Like, so good. Like, okay, every other person is a child. So we're all responsible for one.
And then plus you get like the dynamic then of these people and like their different abilities with like how they'll be with children. Some of them like, you got this, it's okay. And some of them being like, the lizards will get you. They'll get you.
It's like, I cannot express how amazing that sequence is. It's like something out of, I recently watched, I can't remember the name of the movie, but it was basically the same story as the old movie Alive. It was on Netflix just recently. I put it up on the screen already, but it's the story of the Chilean soccer team that crashed in the Andes and survived. It's a harrowing film, fictional account of what they went through, but incredibly well made. That is what I was experiencing, in reading this is just, I'm terrified of dying in an enclosed space like that. And I mean, that would be one of the worst ways to go, I think, is being trapped in the dark, and you just,
I get like a little panic moment if like my bed sheets wrap around my ankles too tight. I'm like, oh, it's fine. That's fine.
Yeah.
So thinking about it, this would be like one of the most challenging challenges is that constriction. And like,
yeah.
Yeah. And like, it's all just like debris. Like at any point in time, it could just be like, crush, you're dead.
Yeah.
Instantly.
Yes. And you have no guarantee that you're not just headed to a dead end.
And then what? You're going to back out? No, you're not. It collapsed. What are you going to do?
There was that wonderful line. I don't think I put it. I have a lot of quotes this week. Well, I may have to pare down. But I don't think one of my quotes was an amazing moment where somebody says like, or I think it's Bottle who's like, there's no guarantee that there's going to be a human-sized exit.
Yes.
You know, which is one of those things in movies or even in video games where it's like, you go down, there's going to be a solution to this puzzle, right? And I like how Erikson's like, no guarantee of that. You know, in the real world, there would be no guarantee that there's even a way out. You know, just because you went down here doesn't mean you can get out of here.
It's like, I think I don't remember where I saw this. People like doing diving and they'll like just dive through like underwater cave holes and they're just free diving. No way, bro.
Horrible.
No.
Horrible.
I hate watching it. I don't like even looking at somebody experiencing it where they're like, hold your breath.
When I was a kid, there was a place we could go that had that where you could go underneath and you came out in a really much cooler thing, but you had to go through this rock tunnel. Extremely small, extremely short. And as a kid, I did it all the time. And I look back on it now as an adult going, what was I thinking?
You're horrified by your own memories.
Yes. You know, you have that child immortality complex where you're like, oh, nothing I can do would be dangerous because I'm a kid and I'll live forever. But as an adult, you're like, what?
Now
what was I doing?
Now I'm like, if I step up on a curb wrong, I could break all of my teeth.
Yes. I'm just going to stay here in bed. And I probably will hurt myself that way.
Yeah, but then the sheets.
The sheets are on my legs. So we have a quick moment where we pop out to the command structure again, Blistig, Tavor, and Pearl shows up just wasted on Durang.
Oh yeah.
And is crying about Lestariel, which is why I think he's not the one that saved her.
Yeah, he's crying, and they're like, oh, your eyes must be red from all the smoke you've been smoking, right?
Yeah.
They're like, you've been crying. He's like, no.
Yeah.
Just a lot of fire.
I had a friend in the fire, and Blistig's like, a friend? There's 2,000 people in the fire.
Yeah. Welcome to the club.
You're sad about?
One person? How about you? You could just say the tragedy before us, and that would be more acceptable.
And there's some sort of mystical way in which Pearl knows that Leoman didn't die, right? Well, one of the things I love about this. What's that?
I thought he like sensed the portal or something.
Yeah, well, I don't think we get exact reason as to how he knows, but he knows that it was the Driss Warren. Maybe that is what it is, that he knows that the Queen of Dreams opened the Driss Warren. But I love how Leoman's plan is, I'm going to lure everybody in. I'm going to blow this place up and fake my own death. And like everybody who's ever done that, you know, Whiskey Jack and Dujek, like everybody's like, he's not dead. He's not. We know what's up. I love how in this universe, the coolest plans, there's always going to be somebody who's like,
immediately like,
nah, I'm on to you, buddy. I'm on to you.
Like the only time we saw that we were like, thought about it was the, what was it? The Emperor.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
But even then,
Shadow
it was
Throne.
Like, oh, I guess nobody's dead. Nobody's dying. Yeah. Now everybody, I'm like, they're fine.
It's like a Leoman's like, I'll fly away, and that's the only way I'll be free is that everybody will think I'm dead. And Pearl's like, yeah, Leoman's not dead. Corab's like, yeah, Leoman, not dead, left. It's so funny.
I am genuinely surprised that we haven't like seen Coltane again.
I know, right?
Yet. Yeah. I still maintain yet, but he's like the one person in my head other than like a bunch of like singularly named soldiers and like only the scene that they die. Yeah. Who is actually gone.
Or Duaker for that matter.
Yeah.
Remember, Duiker's not dead because he had the necklace.
He smashed the vial.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway.
If only there were 4 more books. All right. So we are in the tunnels. And I love how, so we get to this awesome moment where Bottle's like, so there's a shaft that goes down, and Hellion's like, oh, there's spiders in there? I am not going. And Herb is like, punch! Right in the face, knocks her out. And they're like, ooh, that's your sergeant? She's like, yeah, I love her. She's the best.
Best sergeant ever.
The best sergeant.
Didn't he knock her out before they even went in at all?
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, right.
Just the idea of going in the tunnels at all was like, there's spiders in there. I'm not going. And I also love the payoff, which is like, she says there's spiders. We haven't seen any spiders in there yet.
There's just an
But guess what?
assumption.
There's spiders in there.
There they go, and they're walking, they're crawling forward, and it's so thick that they have to push against it, and there's like a loud like twing.
Yeah.
Like not just spiders, like nasty webs.
Oh,
and then so we get to the shaft, and they're like, we gotta go, it's pretty vertical, and then the whole thing collapses out from underneath him, and he just tumbles down, and then the thick netting of spider web like catches him effectively.
Ugh.
And then he could sense all of them. Like, this is like so cool, like landing there and like nobody even understanding like the service bottle
They're
is
like,
really
are
providing.
You okay?
And he's like, other than all of the spiders that are trying to murder me right now, maybe.
I mean, the best, it's so awesome that, he's tumbling down the shaft, scraping up his body. He's pressing his hands and feet against the walls to try to stop his descent. The webs are all over him. And then he finally is wedged there, just sliced to pieces from the, jagged walls that he just slid down.
Mm-hmm.
Spiders crawling all over him. He's the one guy who can actually do something about it. So he like closes his eyes, is like, hey, it's cool, spiders. Everything's cool. We're just passing through. And then it's like, the spiders don't buy it.
Yeah.
That's the coolest one. The spiders are like, no, we're going to eat you. We're going to bite you. We don't like this. And he's like, all right, well, in that case,
they're mad because they're
there's
rats.
fire spiders.
Yeah. He's like mad. They're mad because their rat was like deep and like made it through everything okay.
Yes.
And then they're like, no, we just missed out on some food. We're not going to miss out on this food. And he's like, well, we tried the nice way. Everybody's burning. And
it's
you
so
will too.
True. It's so great. We're like, we wanted to eat that rat. We're pissed. So funny.
And then it's like he's lying there, he's tangled up, he's smashed up. Like a harness falls and like, we're gonna climb down. And he's like, like they have a harness. It's gonna be slow, but if he was able to, I mean, it collapsed, but they could have just climbed and it would have been okay.
And you're right. There's so many wonderful moments of individual, like just the way I imagine it in my head is this long tunnel of people crawling, human centipede style through the tunnel. But it's like person, kid, and we just like check in on little sections of that progression, and it's like Smiles is pissed because she hates kids and is like, I got to deal with this mewling idiot. And the kids are just crying and you feel so horrible for the children that have to endure this. And, there's other people who, the one guy's like feet are getting tickled from the person behind him. And just like so many little wonderful details of this horror of what they have to do.
It's the horror of what they have to do. And I just love that the personalities are so strong. Like when I think about it, like if I were trapped with, I mean, other than like the kids, but otherwise like the people who are like in this army together, like we'll even say my best buddies from work. Yeah, we would still be joking the whole time. That's just
you hope, right, that you got to keep your sanity by doing something.
Yeah, and the fact that is not lost, and they are joking with each other, they are ribbing each other, and people are just sort of like snapping at each other as well. But it's not dramatic. It's not everybody be serious. It's like it's so human, and it's
and there's the one guy who passes out, and they're like, "Whoa." how do I get him to move? And like, I'll twist his broken leg. And he's like, ah! And he screams like, hey, welcome back.
Yeah.
and then the great, awesome, great foreshadowing moment of Corab, where somebody is like, oh, this guy chanting to himself. He's clearly losing it. He's clearly losing it because he's doing this goofy chant. He must be claustrophobic. Oh yeah, I remember. He's a SETI. So he must be going off the deep end right now, because they're usually on the savannas. And then we cut back to Corab, and he has his whole like. I mean, I kept that whole section as a quote. It's probably too long to even read, but that I just was so amazing. Where he's like, "Oh, what did we have to do as kids? We had to spend the night in a coffin. So I'm gonna just be saying my little rhyme that I told myself. Then I got through it. Can't help anybody else because they don't have that experience, but I'm cool."
Yeah. And then
incredible.
Even like the snapshot right after that, one of the kids being like, I listened.
Yeah.
I listened and it helped me. He's like, I'll teach this to you. So next time you're feeling it, you can get through it.
Incredible.
Touching moments. Mentorship is happening.
How there's so many, like this, just the pure description of people being in a tunnel, having to go through the tunnel would be enough. But the fact that Erikson finds all these little moments, all these incredible character moments, I don't know how you do that. Like it's frustrating to me, like how fanboy I've become, because I feel like I'm better than that, but I'm not. I'm just at the altar of this writing. Like, how do you do it? How?
I'm so like haunted by our last interview with Steven, where I'm like trying to like, we're going to do interview questions. And mostly it's like, did you know that this was good?
I know.
Did you know
like
this
that
was
Chris
good?
Farley routine. Like,
Yeah.
That was awesome. Do you remember when you were a Beatle? That was awesome. I mean, and also, I shouldn't say this on the recording, but it hasn't escaped me that he hasn't commented on a video since. And I'm like, did we offend him by how fanboy we were? Anyway, I shouldn't have even said that. So they realize Bottle's like, we need a rope. Everybody take off any harness, any belt, any buckle, anything you've got. We need a rope. And they all start passing it forward. And then we get back to Fiddler and Corab, and Fiddler's like, I got a rope. Smiles dropped it again, but I picked it up.
Loved that. He's like passes it up. He's like, this is a whole ass
actual rope.
Everybody's like, wow, wait, it's covered in blood. Are you fine? He's like, I'm fine. And just the fact that we have this moment of him clocking Smiles and being like, you carry what I tell you to carry.
Yeah.
And then she still didn't.
But he grabbed it.
And you know what? We needed it. We needed that rope. Come on.
The other amazing detail that I wanted to bring up that I forgot to when we were talking about the spiders is how they're glowy spiders.
Oh yeah, the only
they're like
light.
Golden lantern spiders. Awesome. So then if you thought it couldn't get more cool, then Bottle falls into a room of honey jugs.
Well, here's what I love about it. Like talking technologically, they're like, what is this jug? What is this? There's looks like a lid. What's in here? And then like, it's got a screw top lid and all of them like, what is this? Wow. Like the technology, the screw top is was a funny thing to me that sort of places like, oh, they're a cork kind of crowd.
Well, also kind of shows you the Jaggets had tech in a certain way. Like they were advanced in their own way. Right. And we know that Icarium sort of made them forget all that stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway.
We've seen like a couple interesting like tech things, like the floating moon spawns.
Oh yeah, all of the Kachin Shamali.
Like when we saw like the Kachin Shamali like at the controls that I picture like a bulldozer's controls. I don't know why, like a cartoon 2 joystick situation. But like, oh, that's not like I mean, it's obviously magic infused, but there's like tech in there somewhere. These are like technology that we're seeing. Interesting. So they unscrew them and they're like, honey, oh my gosh. And honey, we can put it on our burns. It's going to be this so great. We can eat some. We're not going to die down here at this moment.
Yeah.
Great. And then all of them like, sick. They all get in there and they all put it on. And then all of them are like, what's happening? Everything's not. And then they're all unconscious.
Well, I think I could be wrong, but my reading of it was that that Bottle and Cuddle go. Is it Cuddle? I think Bottle and
I think it is Cuddle.
Yeah, Bottle and Cuddle go in there first, and they're both like, "Oh, this is awesome, honey!" Blah, blah, like Winnie the Pooh, just like pawing it into their mouths, and then we cut to like my interpretation. I could be wrong. Is they pass out, and then everybody else gets down there is like, "Oh, sweet honey," and they don't even notice the passed out bodies.
The thing that I thought was funny to me, maybe you're right. My interpretation is that they were all kind of there. They came in, they're like, because they're like working the screw top, and then Cuddle comes in, or other people come in. They're like, "What is these?" And then they're like struggling with the lids, and they're like, "You have to keep twisting it." And so they like have this conversation about the lids, and then they're all honey, and they all lube it up. And then it's Fiddler and Corab that come in, and they're like, "Wow, everyone's having a nap. I could use a nap." And so even though everybody's passed out, those two are like, "Oh, I think Corab is like, oh, I can put this on your leg. This is going to be so good for your leg." And then all of them are like, "Seems like everybody's sleeping," and then everybody's out. They just all like, have their little fever dreams.
I had in my head like this comic bit where somebody walks into a room and was like, "Oh, cool, look, orange juice," and drinks it, and then passes out. And the next person's like, "Oh, why did they pass out?" "Oh, cool, look, orange juice," drinks it, passes out. It just like keeps happening. That was my mind
Either
canon.
Way, that's like a lot of people to have eaten it, and I had nobody be like, "Not me."
I know, but like I can also imagine, honey, I'm burned and scraped, and oh yes, I will deal with this problem after
everybody is clearly so
my...
tired. Like they just are like, "I get it. Me too. I'm exhausted."
Yes,
we feel safe enough in the honey zone that it's nappy time, but first honey time.
My cheat sheet points out, by the way, that this is a real thing, that it was based on the mad honey of Nepal.
Oh.
That there was actually like psychedelic honey that was created by bees that fed on poppies of some kind. Yeah, like not fed, but pollinated.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So there you go. Psychedelic honey. So rad.
For a very sleepy Friday night.
Yeah. And then we have, Corab being amazing and continuing to be amazing by, Fiddler's basically not doing well, passed out. He figures out a way to strap him to his body to get down the shaft.
And even before that, there was a time where like something was about to cave in, and he's like, "I could have, like, if people are way up there, I could have caught up with them easily by myself." But he says, "There's no way.
Yeah.
There is no world that I let this man die. Or just leave him behind." My enemy. Yeah. And he's like, specifically like, "I can't believe I'm with," there's a moment where he's like, "I can't believe I'm with these Malazans, the enemy." And then he goes, "Are they the enemy? Or was the Empress specifically the enemy? Because these are just people. And if I had gone with Leomin, I never would have known that these are just people."
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I also like how Corab is the only one who's like, "Oh, this honey is the God bringer." Blah,
Yeah.
It's so good. So then we kind of cut away. It's so great. Where like everybody passes out and then we just cut away. And I'm like, what is happening right now? The God bringer? What's going on? But we cut away to like next morning outside. People are, dealing with it. The dogs are okay. Bent and Roach, they're all right. Mm-hmm. Grub is speaking in weird metaphors.
Well, aren't they like, Tavor's like, "Well, pack it up." Like she's like, "Everybody, there's nothing else we can do here, I guess. Let's go." And Grub's like, "It's a bummer that we're leaving. Otherwise, she'll never see what's underneath."
Yeah.
Yeah. And people are like, "What could it possibly mean? I guess nothing." What a weird little guy.
I guess Grub's just saying nonsense again. Everything he says turns out to be true, but whatever. Well, yeah, but they're saying like, "Oh, we lost a bunch of supplies. The surviving army is going to starve because we lost a whole store of supplies. So we got to move." And there's all this setup, which I think is probably going to be the latter portion of the book dealing with, seems to me, of the plague that's in Erlatan, right?
Yes.
Because the plague is this looming threat.
Oh, yeah. That's the other thing. They have to get moving because they want to
the plague is
outrun
coming.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. Like that moment where she's like, hey, is it the plague goddess that's causing the plague? And they're like, yeah, probably. And she's like, why? Why would she do that? And they're like, she's a plague goddess.
It's like
she doesn't need a reason. That's like her whole jam is the plaguing. It's like, oh, yeah, I guess that's
why
true.
do the fire god fire?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The plague goddess needs a reason to plague? No. And there's an awesome thing where, they're talking about how, this is going to be Tavor's first loss. The history books will say it's a win because she eliminated the remaining, opposing force. But we all know, the soldiers all know, it's her first loss.
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a Nil and Nether quote here that I think is also ominous, where they say, the locals believe Coltane ascended, the new patron of crows. Fools, Wiccans do not descend. They just reiterate.
Yes.
Like, ooh, that was cool.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All right. So then we have this moment where we find out that Feridan's Sort has pieced out. She's like, I'm out of here. I'm gonna take Sin. She grabs Sin because she realizes Sin's powerful.
Well, yes. Well, we realize that Sin's powerful, but she also sees something in the way that Sin is like trying to get back in the city. Yeah. And she's like, I'll go talk to her, kind of thing. Yeah. And then it's like, hey, stop wrestling and come over here and let me tell you how we're going to use whatever you got going on here.
Get out of here. And then
they slip away. And I love that it's sort of, you see Feridan go talk to her, but then you only see the other commander guy come back and be like, we can't find either of them. We have every other deserter has come back and we've killed them, or we've located them. They are gone. We cannot find them anywhere.
Yeah.
And you're like, who are they? And then you're like, oh, it's Feridan and Sin.
Yeah. She cuts her hair and they're like, they're gonna go AWOL and get out of here.
Yeah.
And then we come back to just a series of psychedelic fever dreams based on our honey, sweet honey. and it's an amazing sequence where it's just like different characters' visions.
Mm-hmm.
I thought these were incredible.
Their lives and these glimpses as them as people.
Yes. We have a number of them. Balm has a dream of the Dalhanese gods. Mm-hmm. We have Smiles, who is worried about her twin and has this really interesting observation about Mael, who we know, but she talks about Mael being
the oldest god
and also vengeful and terrible.
Yeah.
Like, but Bug was so nice.
He's just a little buddy.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw him explode that one dude pretty instantly.
It's true.
So,
yeah. We have Korik dreaming about this incredible thing about the prostitutes that took care of him and what he learned from them and how they all got old. Oh man, it's just incredible. Incredible stuff. Little short stories, little beautiful visions into these characters that we didn't know very much about. And it ends with Crump having a dream about the Mott salamander god, Stump Flit.
And
incredible.
Don't we also see Bottle and the aerosol again, the pregnant aerosol?
Yep.
Which makes me be like, so is his a dream?
Yeah, I know, right? Yeah, Fiddler sees Hedge Bottle sees the aerosol. And then Bottle wakes up like, oh, we're like, oh man, I feel great. I'm not hurting at all anymore.
No pain. It's feeling good.
Yeah.
Anyway, time to keep crawling.
Time to find another rat.
Yeah, he like wakes up and he's like, there's the moment where he's like, I lost the rat. That was like the last thing he thought about as he was like losing consciousness to the honey drug. And immediately he sort of like quests his brain out there and he's like, no, the rat was here chilling, came back immediately. He was like, what's up? Let's go.
Yeah, let's go. And then he senses the different updrafts and he's like, oh, I think there's a way out of here. I need a knife. Smiles is like, I'll give you one of my throwing knives. These kids are annoying, but I'll do it. And they start plucking at the knife. Cuddle breaks the tip of the knife off, is so upset. Everybody's freaking out because they're stopped. They don't know there's no communication down the line. Like all of that. Everybody's
about like losing it just because progress has stopped. Yeah.
Which totally makes sense to me. And Cuddle's like, screw this. I'm kicking the stone out of the way, which causes the whole thing to collapse. But sunlight streams through. And then, man, the way this is all plays out, we cut to Farad'n, Sort, and Sin outside. Sin's like lagging behind. She won't come. She's like, what's she doing? She scampers down this embankment, goes and plucking around this hole. And
if they see like a random kid, they're like, some urchin is out here just being a kid, just obviously in shock, like not even reacting to them, just being out. And they're like, what?
But we know before that they had sent the kids ahead because the kids were small enough maybe to get through the hole.
Yeah, and push from the outside. But like kids small enough to get through the hole, push from the outside, and then getting outside and just being in shock and like not turning around to help.
But Sin sees them. And then we've had Farad'n Sort established as this total jerk.
Like heartless.
Yes. Complete antagonist, right? But immediately like recognizes what's happening, is like, I'm going to save these. Was going AWOL, was abandoning, was, potentially will be
I don't
killed.
think she was, though. I don't think she was going AWOL. I think she knew Sin was looking for her brother.
Really?
Sin was looking for her brother, and Sin, I think, was the person that Kalam met in that one city that he was like, I'm gonna go get him. And then they were like, we poisoned everybody in there, and he's like, don't do that. That was a bad idea. And Sin was like, I'm looking for my brother.
My interpretation was that Farad'n was like, we're out of here.
Farad'n, that's the thing, is like you hear it from the general who comes back. They deserted, and I think she was the one who was like acting on Grub. I don't think she heard Grub, but like knew that Sin was on to something, and so she took Sin out there, and she's like, they're out there like searching and searching and searching. That's why they didn't piece out to nowhere. They pieced out to back close to the city, and then she was about to give up and be like, hey, we got to figure this out. And then Sin is suddenly like, something's
incredible.
There.
That's incredible. I did not catch that. I think that makes much more sense and is even cooler. Like it makes Farad'n Sort like risking her own thing to go back and save her people who she had sort of been so mean to. And you realize, oh no, that's her.
And then she gets there and she like helps like dig him out. And then, like, as she's helping dig him out, like, her sword breaks, and people are like, oh, your wall sword. And she's like, are you crazy? This thing? Yeah. No, this is a piece of junk. And they're like, but the scabbard. She's like, yeah, the scabbard, the sword is gone. Which made me think, is it Kalam's sword that he bought at the thing? I don't remember, but he found a special sword at some point that he's like, that's a special sword.
I think he still has that, though.
He does, but he's not with them. But I don't remember what his sword was, but that's the only special sword other than the cursed ones that I can think of. But she helps them out. And even immediately she helps them out. It's like, oh, she's not so bad after all. And then she sees the rat and she's like winding up. And then he's like, not today. Not ever again. And she's like, geez, rat, disgusting. And he's like, no, little Egatan here. And she's like, you named it Egatan? He's like, that's the fitting name. This is our savior, and you will not touch him.
Just an incredible setup and payoff, you know? And I felt such elation in that moment of them getting out and the way that she finds them and pulls them out of this tunnel. And then you cut back to Corab and Fiddler. They're out. They're all like, oh, we're okay. And he's like, let's do head count. We're missing 2. Oh, no.
They're back.
Fiddler and that traitor. I'm sure he killed him.
Mm-hmm. But even like before we actually got them, it like cuts back to Bottle being like, I can touch the air.
Yeah.
My hand is outside. And we found the end of the path, and it is not human sized.
Right.
And like has some kind of rock and like smashes his finger like instantly, trying to like break a gap in the thing, and then just cuts back to his arm being too tired to even keep digging. And it really is like, is this it for them? And then they find each other. But like that moment of like, wow, we really did get to within feet of the exit, and we just can't get out. Whew.
Yeah. And then, back with Corab and Fiddler, and he's like, I'm not going to leave you. And Gessler shows up, and they're like, you came back in for us? He's like, yeah. You're there, man. It's like right there. You're there. We're all out. We made it.
Yeah. Again, because they had like lost the way.
He thought they got turned around. Yeah.
And like the thing, I also love the moment of Fiddler saying like, you came back in, like how, like again, illustrates how horrible that journey was, that somebody coming back in and being willing to put themselves in that. It's not safe to come back in, even that close to the end. Like touching shows the care that these people have for each other. It's great.
I think I conflated 2 different stories earlier when I was talking about that movie Alive. I think they're Argentinian. The Chilean miners is the other thing that brought to mind. So I called them a Chilean soccer team. So I'm sure everybody already emailed to correct me, but I think I was conflating the Chilean miners and I think Argentinian soccer team that was in the Andes.
Mm-hmm.
Apologies for that. Anyway, Fiddler kind of vouching for Corab at the end, saying he's never been in better hands.
That was, because they were like, man, we got to get you out of here, away from this guy. And he's like, you dum-dums.
Well, the cool part is Gessler's like, hey, you don't have to do that. I can carry Fiddler. And Corab's like, no, I brought him this far.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, man, shot to my heart. Corab.
Yeah,
Corab. We are way long already. I apologize. I know you have to go to work.
I don't, but that's okay.
Maybe not. All right. Well, we got, I mean, I have a number, just way too many.
I will say that I didn't.
Sequences.
This is one of those chapters that I find that often enough when I'm like really flipping.
Yeah.
I forget to highlight. So I have some, but not a ton. So you can kick us off, and then I have one longer one and 2.
Mine are all
single sentences
from toward the end of this very long chapter, because I was a lot of page turning at the beginning, but I think at the end there's a lot of just amazing stuff. So we talked about this before, how terrified I am of enclosed spaces like this, but this really felt like it summed up how horrible it would be. They'd all discovered an unexpected horror. That of stopping. Moving forward had been a tether to sanity, for it had meant that somewhere ahead, Bottle was still crawling, still finding a way through. When everyone had come to a halt, terror had slipped among them, closing like tentacles around throats and squeezing.
So good. Like, just like if you're moving, it's okay.
We're going somewhere. All we have to do is keep moving. But if we're stopped, we're gonna die.
Yeah. And like how instantaneously you could like be distracted by that, and like just the thought of like crawling through and being like just thinking about your body moving. And then when there's nothing else to distract you and you're looking at walls that are probably like inches from your face, and that's all you have, whoo doggy.
Who doggy.
It's good. It's good.
I have a bunch.
Okay.
But you can go. Go ahead.
I have one. I picked this one because I think it was like a more concise section, but all the difference between dead smell and throat slitter, I
Throat
think it
slitter,
is.
yeah.
So, well, there's a couple groups of people that are like razzing each other, and I really liked this one. It was funny.
Is this the pee moment?
This is.
I love it. Sorry, I didn't mean to spoil it. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank hood all that screaming stopped, Baum said, plucking at whatever was tingling against all his skin, tingling, prickling like some kind of heat rash. Heat rash. That was funny. Sergeant, Dead Smell said, it was you doing all the screaming? Quiet, you damn liar. It wasn't me. It was the kid ahead of me. Really? I didn't know he spoke Dalanese. I will skewer you, Corporal. Just one more word, I swear it. Gods, I'm itchy all over like I've been rolling in fool's pollen. You get that after you've been panicking, Sergeant. Fear sweat, it's called. You didn't piss yourself too, did you? I'm smelling. I got my knife out, Dead Smell. You know that? All I got to do is twist around and you won't be bothering me no more. You tossed your knife, Sergeant, in the temple. Fine, I'll kick you to death. Well, if you do, can you do it before I have to crawl through your puddle?
So good. Just so good.
Irreverence.
Thank God that screaming stopped. That was you screaming, idiot.
Yeah.
So funny.
It's
so good.
Like, even just like, we're talking in like the aftermath of that moment and people sort of like the moment of sanity, but thinking about what happened before that of just like him crawling and screaming and like being out of his mind and how intense that would have been for everybody around them. It's like, there's the darkness was right there. And now we're in the light.
Yeah.
It's great.
All right. This is the Korik thing, which I thought was so awesome. He said, Korik had through it all muttered his chant, the child death song, the SETI rite of passage from whelp into adulthood, a ritual that had, for girl and boy alike, included the grave log, the hollowed out coffin, and the night-long internment in a crypt of the bloodline. Buried alive, for the child to die, for the adult to be born, a test against the spirits of madness, the worms that lived in each person, coiled at the base of the skull, wrapped tight about the spine, worms that were ever eager to awaken, to crawl, gnawing a path into the brain, whispering and laughing or screaming or both. He had survived that night. He had defeated the worms. And that was all he needed for this. All he needed.
I like the worm zone. I like the worms. That was, yeah, great pull. Great.
So good.
Pull.
Yeah. Yeah.
I have one that is a bit longer.
Go for it.
I have I could just do the single sentence, but this one, it's almost the entire section of Smiles is sort of honey induced vision that is about her twin sister and the sacrifice that they make in whatever the Itko Can village that she lived in.
Yeah.
Odd how those priests never volunteered themselves for that glorious gift. How they never insisted that they be the ones tied and weighted down to await the tide's wash and the crabs, the ever-hunger crabs. And if it was so damn blissful, why pour during oil down her throat until her eyes were like black pearls and she couldn't even walk, much less think, still less comprehend what was happening, what they were planning to do to her? Drifting above the body of herself, Smiles sensed the old spirits drawing close, eager and gleeful, and somewhere in the depths beyond the bay waited the eldest god, Male himself, that feeder on misery, the cruel taker of life and hope. Rage rising within her, Smiles could feel her body straining at the numbing, turgid chains. She would not lie unmoving. She would not smile up when her mother kissed her one last time. She would not blink dreamily when the warm water stole over her, into her. Hear me, all you cursed spirits. Hear me, I defy you. Oh yes, flinch back. You know well enough to fear, because I swear this, I will take you all down with me. I will take you all into the abyss, into the hands of demons of chaos. It's the cycle, you see. Order and chaos, a far older cycle than life and death, wouldn't you agree? So come closer, all of you. In the end, it was as she had known. They'd taken her sister, and she, well, let's not be coy now, you delivered the last kiss to your girl, and no Durhang oil to soothe away the excuse either. Running away never feels as fast, never as far as it should.
Man, that's so good. And I think that is definitely hinting at where the series is going with order and chaos, you know?
Mm-hmm. And even just the relationship between male, it's like assuming that all of these little snapshots are like very real pieces of their lives. We got smiles, we got mail. I foresee drama.
Drama. All right, I have 3 more. One of them is very short. The other 2 are a little longer. So this one is more Corab. There had been a time, much later, when Corab had come upon his own language, protecting the miserable lives of the women from whom he had first learned the art of empty worship. A mindful dialect bound to no cause but that of the living, of familiar aging faces, of repaying the gifts the now unwanted once whores had given him in his youth, and then watching them one by one die, worn out, so scarred by so many brutal hands, the indifferent usage by the men and women of the city, who proclaimed the ecstasy of God worship when it suited them, then defiled human flesh with the cold need of carnivores straddling a kill. Deep in the sleep of Carolbara, the God-bringer, Corab beheld no visitors. For him, there was naught but oblivion.
Good one. Go on.
It's like atheism, right?
Yeah.
Right? Like watching the hypocrisy of religious zealots. It's so good. Do you have any more?
I have one super, super short one.
Go for it.
Compassion existed when and only when one could step outside oneself to suddenly see the bars from inside the cage.
That was my next one as well. So good.
So good.
So good. So where is it? Okay. Well, I actually have 2, but I don't need to read both of them. All right, here's one. Here's the last one. This is Corab's revelation. So much had changed inside him. He was no believer in causes, not anymore. Certainty was an illusion, a lie. Fanaticism was poison in the soul, and the first victim in its inexorable, ever-growing list was compassion. Who could speak of freedom when one's own soul was bound in chains? He thought now, finally, that he understood Toblakai. And it was all too late. This grand revelation. Thus I die a wise man, not a fool. Is there any difference? I still die, after all. No, there is. I can feel it. That difference. I have cast off my chains. I have cast them off. I love it. I love it. So good.
Book.
Chapter 7,
Good.
a triumph. Everybody was right. Thank you all. What an amazing thing. Next week, I think we're back to 2 chapters, right?
I believe so.
Thanks for being with us. I know this was a super long one. Hope you had as much fun with it as we did. Keep sending those suggestions for other topics. We'll see you soon.
When the world's too dark of a place to be, and you need an escape from reality, open up those pages, it's sci-fi or fantasy, whatever genre you please. And join a book club, 'cause you won't read it on your own. Join a book club, so you'll be held accountable. It's just a means to an end, but you're doing it with your friends, so join the book club.